Good morning, everyone. Today we are going to study Thomas Hardy's poetry. Nowadays, we are running a series of Thomas Hardy's life and his works. So, it is about his poetry. In 1898, Hardy published his first volume of poetry, Wessex Poems. It is a collection of poems written over 30 years. Means to say, Hardy spent his life's 30 years writing these poetry and ultimately published in 1898. While some suggest that Hardy gave up writing novels following the harsh criticism of Jude the Obscure in 1896, the poet C.H. Sisson calls this hypothesis superficial and absurd. In the 20th century, Hardy published only poetry. It means Hardy published his novels, prose works before entering into 20th century, and after entering into 20th century he wrote poetry only. Thomas Hardy published Poems of the Past and the Present in 1901, which contains the Darkling Thrush. This is a poem that we often see in the courses, academic courses in our schools. So it is Darkling Thrush, originally titled The Century's End. It is one of the best known poems about the turn of the century. Thomas Hardy wrote in a great variety of poetic forms, including lyrics, ballads, satire, dramatic monologues, and dialogues. And with these, he wrote a three-volume epic closed drama, The Dynasts, about which we have prepared a lecture that is already uploaded. So, it was an epic drama, The Dynast, which was completed in 1904 to 1908, and though in some ways a very traditional poet because he was influenced by folk song and ballads, he was never conventional and persistently experimental with different, often invented stanza forms and meters. And Hardy made use of long hewn rhythms and colloquial diction. Hardy wrote a number of significant war poems that relate to both the Boers War and World War I, including the poem about the wars is Drummer Hodge, In Time of the Breaking of Nations, and The Man He Killed. His work had a profound influence on other war poets such as Rupert Brooke, Siegfried Sassoon. These are war poets. Hardy in these poems often used the viewpoint of ordinary soldier and their colloquial speech. A theme in the Wessex poems is a long shadow that the Napoleonic Wars cast over the 19th century, as seen, for example, in the Sergeant Song and the Leipzig. The Napoleonic War is the subject of the Dynast, the epic drama, the closed drama, or worse drama, or it is only one drama, major drama of Thomas Hardy, the Dynasts. Some of the Hardy's more famous poems are from poems 1912 to 1913. It is a collection of poems which came under the name of poems 1912 and 13, which later became parts of the satire of circumstances. It was included in that collection, Satire of Circumstance, 1914, written following the death of his wife Emma in 1912. They had been estranged for 20 years, and these lyric poems express deeply felt regret and remorse. Poems like After a Journey, The Vice, and others from this collection are by general constant regarded as the peak of his poetic achievement. In 2007 biography on Hardy, Claire Tomalin argues that Hardy became the truly great English poet after the death of his first wife Emma, beginning with these elegies, which she describes as among the finest and strangest strangest celebrations of the dead in English poetry. Many of Hardy's poems deal with themes of disappointment in love and life and the perversity of fate, but the best of them present these themes with a carefully controlled elegiac feeling. Irony is an important element in a number of Hardy's poems, including The Man He Killed and Are You Digging on My Grave? A few of Hardy's poems, such as The Blinded Bird, a melancholy polemic against the sport of weekend jetting, reflects his firm stance against animal cruelty, exhibited in his anti-vivisectionist views and his membership in the Royal Society for the Prevention of Cruelty to Animals. A number of notable English composers, including Gerald Finzi, Benjamin Britten, Ralph Vaughan Williams, and Gustav Holst, set poems by Hardy to music. Means these are the composers who composed music on the poems of Thomas Hardy. Holst also wrote the orchestral tone poem Acton Heath, a homage to Thomas Hardy in 1927. Although Hardy's poems were initially not as well received as his novels had been, Hardy is now recognized as one of the great poets of 20th century, and his works had a profound influence on later writers, which include Robert Frost, W. H. Auden, Dylan Thomas, and Philip Larkin included 27 poems by Hardy compared with only 9 by T.S. Eliot in his edition of the Oxford Book of 20th Century English Verse in 1973. There were fewer poems by W.B. Yeats, poet critic Donald Davies. Thomas Hardy and English poetry considers Hardy's contribution to ongoing poetic tradition at length and in creative depth. Davies' friend Tom Thomgon also wrote on Hardy and acknowledged his stature and example. So, friends, this is all about Thomas Hardy as a poet and his poetry. Mainly, he wrote poetry in 20th century, and before that, he wrote novels and prose works. So, friends, we will meet in the next lecture.